Another football season is upon us. You ready to go?
Absolutely. I've been waiting 6 months for this. I'm ready. Bring it on.
So, for those of you just tuning in, we're talking Florida Gators football season 2024. Big year ahead. My name's Dallin. I've been a Florida Gator football fan for a lot of years. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. First football team I ever rooted for. And then I have with me probably one of the most diehard Gator fans I've ever met, Skylar.
Yeah, so what's up, guys? I'm Skylar. I currently live in Melbourne, Florida. I'll be a high school senior this year. My mom graduated from the University of Florida in 1979. We've had season tickets my entire life, so I've been brainwashed into loving the Florida Gators. But they're great. I love them, and I love talking Gator football. So let's do this thing.
And I can attest to that because everything they own in their house is orange and blue. Um, and the only thing I can say about being brainwashed into Florida Gators football is one of Kevin Costner's cousins. Her name was Laura Costner. She brought me free Florida Gator stuff. She was friends with my parents. She brought me free Florida Gator stuff as a kid to brainwash me into it. So I've paid attention to it through all the years. I can't put up with the Florida heat, so I'm not down in Florida right now. I'm too old to deal with that, but I do watch from afar. So this year, SEC, new look, more teams. What are you excited to see with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas into the SEC?
Well, first things first. Of course, very excited. SEC has always been one of the best conferences in the country. My opinion, I might have a little bit of SEC bias, but especially with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma, I think there's really no question with the addition of them. You have Georgia, you have Alabama, you have LSU, you have Tennessee, all the big name schools. So I think what this really adjusts is even more competitiveness during the regular season. For those who don't know, SEC was split between the SEC East and the SEC West with divisions. They've done away with that. So now going into the conference championship, it's whatever the top two teams are in the conference. And I think that's really going to push competitiveness in the regular season, battling for those top two spots.
I love it. No, that's a great clarification. I mean, when you only take the top two teams, then you can't be in if your half of the division isn't as strong that year, you can't coast. You gotta do everything you can to stay at the top. And I love it. I'm same thing here. I think it's hard to contest that the SEC is the number one conference in the nation. I think everybody you talk to would agree with that, especially in terms of national title dominance. I mean, look at the last 20 years, how many of the teams have been out of the SEC? The majority, right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's Alabama or Florida or whomever. So this season, the Florida Gators schedule, when you talk about competitiveness, uh, a lot of different, I was looking at 24/7 sports earlier today. Number one hardest strength of schedule, Florida Gators this year.
Hmm.
So tell me a little bit about your thoughts. Let's go through each game and discuss. They open on August 31st in Miami, or no, at the Swamp against Miami.
Hmm.
What are you thinking about this game?
Well, before start anything, I just want to say, as a Gator fan and what I've seen the last 2 years, I am absolutely terrified for this schedule. We went 2 years ago, we went 6-7, and last year we went 5-7, missing out on a bowl game. So coming into this year with the toughest schedule in the country is very nerve-wracking to say the least. But to jump right into things, like you said, start off 3:30 game in the Swamp against Miami. Big game. Miami's got some big transfers coming in, specifically Cam Ward at quarterback position. I think their offense is going to be very tough to stop. But first game in the Swamp, 3:30, I think that place is going to be rocking. Jumping back to a couple years ago, I'm sorry to do this to you, but we did beat Utah in the Swamp.
True,
Um,
very true.
so I think, opening weekend is going to be rocking. It's going to be loud. I think Florida does steal that one at home, and I think they start off 1-0.
Okay. Cam Ward, great talent. Got to watch him play at Washington State. I think with the turnover there and a lot of the turmoil, wasn't able to quite reach a ceiling. Fantastic player. Mario Cristobal as well. Fantastic coach, especially on the lines. So I think he brings a lot of grit and a lot of toughness to Miami. It's maybe been lacking in previous years. But I think Florida does pull out a close game to start the season because of the fact that Billy Napier's on the hot seat. You mentioned the six or the mediocrity of the last 2 years, especially by Florida Gators standards. I mean, Utah did beat them to start last season, just to let you know. For those of you who don't know, I live in Utah, so I went to the University of Utah. So that is the team I probably hold closest to my heart most of the time. But when it comes to any other team in the country, Florida Gators are the ones I watch, and that's and so Skyler's my nephew, so we go back and forth on this and have a good time with it. But with Billy Napier, I mean, I was really optimistic about his hire. I think this is year 3, really trying to see some progress. If he can get that first win, it'd be a great launching pad for his ability to endure at Florida. So his next game on the schedule, we got Samford. So I mean, this might be the reason they have toughest schedule in America this year. But I'm just being sarcastic. But this game, I think this is kind of a small talking point. It's a good tune-up game. Any thoughts, Sad, on the Stanford game?
I agree. It should be a breeze. Um, I do want to mention a couple years ago, Billy Napier's first year, we were on the downfall back half of the season. We actually played Samford, I want to say second to last game, and we were down 14 to them at halftime. And then we came back and won 70 to 52. So, um, not really important, but Samford, FCS school should be a breeze.
Yeah, I think hopefully that one's a good tune-up, and then they get to go to a team that I think is really intriguing. Texas, or I guess they get them in their house. So Florida plays the first 3 games at home. They get Texas A&M at home. What are you thinking about Texas A&M this year?
You know, I really don't know what to think about Texas A&M any year. The last 2 years they started in the top 25. They had okay seasons. I think they finished with 8 wins last year.
Yep.
Um, but I think this year they're going to be good. They're going to be a tough team to beat. But again, I think we have them at home. I think if it was in College Station, I think that would be a loss. But again, in the Swamp, tough place to play, home crowd. I think the Gators still won at home.
And that this is a tough one. I agree. Texas A&M is one of those conundrums in college football. I mean, Jimbo Fisher won at Florida State. I know that he recruited great talent at Texas A&M, but they never could put it together. So they got Mike Elko coming in, and he's had a lot of success in turning on programs that really haven't been traditionally football programs. Um, so to see him with talent in the cupboard, I think bodes well for his odds for and his success there at Texas A&M. But I'm with you. I think being at the Swamp 3 games in a row, this first homestand 3 games, if they win that Miami game, I think they win the other 3. If they lose that Miami game, I think the wheels start to fall off early. So this one's a toss up for me. I really think that if the Miami game goes the way of Florida, then so does the A&M game. And then we get, the first 3 games, everybody's warming up in the country, everybody's a little bit rusty, and you get as you get into the actual season, we start to see what teams are made of. So, what are your thoughts about Game 4 on the schedule here as they go into their first road test against Mississippi State?
You know, it's a toss up for me. Mississippi State, it is a tough place to play. They got the cowbells. Um,
More cowbell.
so I'm gonna give us the edge on this because of our quarterback Graham Mertz. He'll be a senior this year. He's had a ton of experience. He had a great season last year. Um, so I think on the road, I think the Florida Gators will go in there. I think we're gonna win by a touchdown.
Okay. I like the optimism. I think that a game against Mississippi State, it's once again, I think a lot of Florida's games this year are going to be toss-ups. I think that, it's difficult to see where things are going, but I really believe in Napier. I don't know why a lot of Florida fans probably slap me upside the head and say, he hasn't shown it on the field, but it takes some time. I've seen other coaches that when you have some time to put your system in place and you have the background and the expertise to understand the game of football, then good things start to happen as you create a culture. Graham Mertz having a second year in the system, he looked great at times. I mean, there were times where he looked like a top tier quarterback, and times where things kind of fell down. He has Eugene Wilson on the outside. I like their ability to spread the field. By this game four, Montrell Johnson should be healthy. Montrell Johnson is a beast of a running back. Um, yeah, I think they go on the road and beat Mississippi State. Mississippi State is a team that's also trying to find itself, and after Mike Leach being gone, trying to identify how they grow as a program. So I think that Florida is able to take this one and start a really optimistic 4-0. I mean, if you told most Gator fans 4-0 to start the season, I think they take it in a heartbeat.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially with this gauntlet of a schedule. Can't ask for a better start.
Okay, so now we get the battle for supremacy within the space shuttle world. UCF, every UCF person I've talked to, they love the fact that hey, this is our university is by Cape Canaveral. You can see the shuttles launch, from a distance, and they have that view over. I think their 50-yard line is even lined up with Cape Canaveral or something
Hmm.
like that.
Hmm.
So, but University of Florida has been churning out engineers for years. So the battle for the state of Florida, at least from a Central Florida perspective, um, always great talent at UCF. Gus Malzahn, fantastic coach. He gave a lot of teams the business this last year, even though they didn't finish off a lot of those games. What are you seeing with this game? UCF comes into Florida or into Gainesville.
Yeah, I agree with you earlier. I think that Miami game is one of the most important games of the season, if not the most important. I think this one's the second most. I think a win here, if things go the way we hope them to and expect them to, we'll start out 5-0. And the next week we go into Tennessee. Always a tough place to play, one of the hardest in the country. Um, so again, starting out 5-0, a lot of confidence. Going into Knoxville, I think with a win against UCF, I think we have a chance at beating Tennessee. And frankly, for the rest of the season as well. If we lose to UCF, I think that's where things start to go downhill. Um, the back half of the schedule is brutal, absolutely brutal. So I think we're going to get the win. I think again, it's going to be a close. I think it's going to be a single digit win. And I think we carry that confidence into Tennessee the next week.
Yeah, I think that superior talent wins this game. There was some stat I saw a while back that 70% of the time the team with the highest rated roster wins the game. UCF has gained ground in recruiting over the last several years, but I think their depth is not enough to match Florida's depth. Florida typically has a lot of athletes on the roster, even guys that maybe you haven't heard of. They come in and you're like, man, that guy's faster than half the starters in their team. So I think that they do pull out a close game, especially being at home. Like you mentioned, one big point when you mentioned Miami being a big game as well as UCF, the ability to gain and maintain foothold in the state of Florida recruiting, I think in winning those games is very important because local athletes, I mean, living down there, they're all watching these games and saying, hey, if UCF's winning, maybe I should go to school there instead of going to University of Florida. Malzahn has the experience. UCF's now in a Power Four conference, I guess is where we're at. People are talking about going to Power Three. Who knows? So, yeah, so we're Power Four. That's weird to say. But so UCF's Power Four in the Big 12. So that I think it's a big game for Florida to win, but I think they do win. UCF, I think, still needs to figure out how to close close games, and this one will be close on the road. I think it'll be a difficult game. So jumping to the game that you're already excited about, you're already talking about. So 5-0, Florida goes into Tennessee. They go
Mhm.
going into Tennessee. What are some of the keys to this game? I think we get a little more in depth on this game. This is the beginning of a brutal stretch for the Gators. Anyone paying attention, we mentioned they have the hardest schedule in America, and this is where it begins. All these other games, they're decent opponents, but the back half as we go through it, you will with every game be like, ouch, that's going to be a tough game to recover from because there's blood, sweat, and tears on the field every game. So Tennessee, traditional rival.
Well, Tennessee, again, I mentioned it, one of the toughest places to play in all of college football. Stadium holds 100,000 people. I don't see Florida going in there on their turf and winning. Like you said, it's a very big rivalry. I I don't remember the exact stat, but in the last 20 years, I think Tennessee's only beaten us 2 or 3 times. So Tennessee's going to be out to get us. I think this year Tennessee's just got the better roster, top down. I think they're just better talent. So I think Tennessee takes that one. I think Florida gets the first loss of the season.
Uh, you know what? I'm gonna go chalk with you as well. Florida did beat Tennessee last year, 29-16. I remember watching that game. Mertz looked pretty solid. I think he got knocked out of the game partway through, didn't he? And then he came back in, or it was a pretty heated game.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah. But Florida was able to pull it off at home, as you mentioned. This game is on the road. Um, I think it is a loss as well. We don't want to sound too much like Florida homers here. It got to be realistic. I think that you know, I think that a 5-1 start is looking pretty good. Let's see. So 5-1 going in. So we got Miami, Stanford, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, UCF, Tennessee. 5-1 start is what we have for anybody joining in. Um, Now going to University of Kentucky. If you asked me in years past about this game, well, University of Kentucky's coming to Florida. If you asked me in years past about this game, I'd say Florida wins it hands down. Kentucky's a basketball school, but the last few years have showed us that Mike Stoops' team can play. So what are you thinking with University of Kentucky?
Well, Kentucky homecoming game. Again, we get them in the swamp. I think again a close win. I think single digits. Kentucky, especially as of late, like you said, they're a much better program in years past. We Florida actually had, I want to say, a 31 game win streak against them, which they unfortunately ended in 2018 in the swamp. So hopefully we can get that going again, but I think it's a win for the Gators.
Okay. I actually think that Kentucky takes this one. I think it's gonna be a surprise if they lose that second game, or that sixth game against Tennessee. I think it's a little bit hard to rebound, and Kentucky catches them flat-footed, and we go 5-2 to start the season, and then then we move on to one of the biggest games of the year, the largest cocktail party in America, as they say,
Mhm.
um, Florida, Georgia. Do you see the Georgia machine slowing down this year?
I don't. I think they're the best team in the country. I think they have one of the best chances to win the national championship this year. I This is actually November 2nd. This is on my birthday. I'm going to
Okay.
be going up with my family, going to the game in Jacksonville. For those who don't know, it is a neutral site game. Every year it's in Jacksonville, Florida. But I don't see Florida winning this game. I think it's a double-digit loss. I think we lose by a couple of touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we haven't really been giving score predictions, but I'm looking at, maybe a 31-14 type of game. Unfortunately, yeah, Georgia is just they're just rolling. And maybe when we have the Georgia game going, one of my buddies, Jason, he's a big Georgia Bulldog fan. He's from Georgia. Maybe we'll have him on and see if he'll chat with us a little bit. Maybe we don't want him to chat with us. He'll talk trash the whole time.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Now this game is interesting. So I've got 5-3 right now. You've got them at 6-2. With Texas, Florida gets in the first year of Texas being in the SEC. Florida goes to Texas, which will be a new venue, a new team to prepare for. What do you think about Sarkisian's squad and the chances of Florida pulling an upset? Because Texas is also a team that's highly thought of amongst the college football world.
Yeah, I'm very high on Texas this year. I Georgia actually goes to Texas this year. They play each other. I think Texas actually steals that one. I think that's Georgia's one loss. I think those two also meet in the SEC championship. So I think Texas and Georgia are the two best teams in the SEC this year. I think on the road at Texas and Austin, it's just going to be too tough for the Gators. I think we take another loss there.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to contend with here. You saw that Texas team last year. I mean, they were able to go in and take it to Alabama beginning of the season. They had a few hiccups along the way, but Texas is just an elite squad. They look beefy up front. I mean, they look good, and so I think Texas wins this game pretty handily. Florida, I think they're going to be reeling. So I've got them at 5-4. You've got them at 6-3. and then they get to go home and have LSU come into the Swamp. Great game. Love the atmosphere at this game. Oh, it usually a late night game on ESPN, fireworks, the whole 9 yards. A great rivalry. What do you think about Florida's chances of picking up a W?
I'm actually really excited for this game. I know a lot of people are high on LSU this year. I'm not buying all of it. I think they will be a top 25 team, but I don't think they're gonna be top 10. I think they'll be kind of lower, maybe high teens into the 20s. I think I think Florida steals this one at home. I think they get their seventh win against LSU. They're gonna be rocking the all black uniforms this year. Hopefully we can get a
Okay,
win with them.
black and white.
Um, oh yeah, but I think Florida takes this one.
I agree with you. I think this is a great chance for them to pick up some momentum finishing off the season. Um, with Jaden Daniels leaving for the NFL, trying to find a new quarterback is not that easy. People think that you can just plug and play, but I mean, we're talking, young folks that have, for the first time going and playing in front of, 70, 80, 90,000 fans. That's not easy. And no matter, even though this is later in the season, I think LSU struggles. Last year, Jaden Daniels single-handedly pulled them out of a lot of games where their defense couldn't stop anybody, but Jaden Daniels was able to outscore them in a track meet type game. If that's how this game plays out, I don't think LSU has a chance. I think that Florida wins if it's a track meet style game. If it's a slugfest, you know, 5 yards in a cloud of dust type, or 3 yards in a cloud of dust type game, I think it's anyone's game, but I don't think it's going to be that way. I think that Florida pulls this out and is able to go to 6-4 on my radar, 7-3 on yours, and then we get to finish once again hardest schedule in America. Get to go play Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin. Man,
Oh yeah.
there's no rest for the wicked, man. It's every game is brutal. So going and playing a great team like Ole Miss, who really could win the conference. I don't think they will. I'm with you. The Texas and oh my gosh, and Georgia are the top two teams in the league, but Ole Miss is no slouch. They might be number three.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ole Miss is the third best team in the conference. Maybe Alabama. I think it's kind of a toss up between those two. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, high-powered offense. I think they're going to put up a lot of points on our defense. I think they come into the swamp. I think they beat us. Um, I, I don't see us beating Ole Miss this year.
At Ole Miss, they have experience. Jackson Dart at quarterback still. They have a lot of the same players in place. Lane Kiffin, I think this is his third year now, and every year he's had quite a bit of success. It seems like they've grown every year. So I agree with you. I think they win this game handily, even though it's at the Swamp. That would put Florida, um, in a precarious situation. I think going in once again to play Florida State to finish up the season. Billy Napier on the hot seat. I mean, do you think if Billy Napier only has 6 or 7 wins at this point in the season, do you think he's still there?
I think again it's a toss up. I think it's going to really depend on how the team plays. Um, when we play teams like Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, Florida State, and LSU, of course. If we're close, if we're battling, or if it's just a blowout, I think it's going to depend on how the team plays, how we perform, and if it's poorly, I think he's out.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Florida, I've been at those games where people are calling for the coach's head, and this is like when they have a 9-win season.
Yeah.
So here we are on the brink of another 50-50, 500 type season. Um, Going into Florida State on the road in Tallahassee. How do you see this one finishing out?
I think, unfortunately, I think the Gators don't take this one. I think they end the season with a loss at their biggest in-state rival, Florida State. They're a good team, very strong defense. I think it's going to be close just because that rivalry. Last year, we ended up losing by 9 points at the Swamp. Year before that, we lost at FSU by a touchdown. So I think it's going to be close, but I think Florida State takes this one.
Only thing I can say to you is you got to have faith. That's I really think that we have the same record with the Gators winning 7 games, going 7-6 this year, but I think they do it in a different way. I think they beat Florida State to finish the season. If Billy Napier's still there, I think they're out there slugging for their coach. trying to save his job, even if it doesn't work. And I think they win this game. Rivalry games are always highly contested. I think
Mhm.
with the quarterback at Florida State leaving, that he left this year, right?
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
what I thought. I thought he was senior last year. I want to make sure I'm
Yeah.
not off. With him leaving, I think that it's always tough to just put a new guy in, especially in a rivalry type context, unless he's the second coming of Tim Tebow type of player. I don't see a brand new quarterback coming in with the poise needed to win a game like this, especially when the other team has a more experienced quarterback in Graham Mertz. I think Florida wins this game, finishes with a win. We both have 7-6 records for the Gators this year. I don't think that keeps Billy Napier's job, unfortunately. I think they do go a different route. Um, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Again, I think it's going to depend on how the team performs throughout the season, and the losses, if it's close or if we're getting blown out, um, as well as the bowl game. Assuming we do win 6 or 7 games, we'll be in the bowl game. Um, so we'll see how we perform in that one. Um, so yeah.
I think you're right. It probably does depend on how the games look. If they're close, then maybe it saves his job if these are a lot of heartbreakers rather than blowouts. But yeah, 7-6 year, it's still progress. So that said, hopefully the Gators can continue to build on that no matter which direction the coaching change goes. Hope it gives everybody a good overview of the season. And we'll catch you on the next episode, talking a little bit more in depth about the team and who to look out for.